Hey, good afternoon to you. It's 5:06 now. News Talk 105.9 WMAL, where we're making sense of the news. You can join us today, 888-630-9625, 888-630-WMAL. Coming up this hour, Ken Paxton, the Attorney General of Texas, will be here. Texas is trying to secure the border. The Biden administration is trying to stop them. We'll get the details from the Attorney General ahead. A lot of climate conversations going on all over the place right now. We got a bunch of snow in the D.C. area. The New York Times told me I wouldn't get snow anymore because of global warming. So much for that. They actually told me we'd also get more snow. They every day they write a different headline on the subject. In Chicago, they're suffering. If you're an electric car owner in Chicago right now, things are not good for you.
Okay, Emily, thank you. That cold is also causing some big-time headaches for Chicago area owners of electric vehicles.
Yes, I never thought we'd say this, but it's true. As Dane Placco reports, the low temperatures have caused some headaches for owners looking to charge their cars.
Electric cars may be the way of the future, but it's clear there are some problems when it comes to charging them in Chicago's deep freeze.
Oh, we got a bunch of dead robots out here.
Dead robots. Dead Teslas packed the parking lot at this Tesla supercharging station in Oak Brook, a scene mirrored in other supercharging stations around the Chicago area.
Man, this is crazy. It's a disaster, seriously.
With temperatures falling into the negative double digits, these charging ports have stopped charging, leaving many Tesla owners stranded here in long lines since Sunday.
That's the report from Fox 32 Chicago. So the green agenda, not exactly moving right now, well, because it's cold out. Steve Milloy joins us now. He is a senior E&E Institute Legal Fellow and a former Trump EPA Team Member as well. Steve, good to have you with us, sir.
Hey, Vince, thanks for having me back.
It turns out you need an internal combustion engine when things get a little chilly.
Yeah, and of course, everybody knows this. You know, in extreme weather conditions, EVs just fail. They require a lot of power, especially in the winter. They require power to keep their batteries warm overnight, so they're continually draining.
Yeah.
In very, very cold weather, like it's hard to charge them. It's hard to drive. It's just, they're a nightmare. They're sort of, like all green technology, when conditions are perfect, they work okay, even though you paid too much for them. But when the chips are down, you really need fossil fuels.
Yeah, big time. Yet the Biden administration and all of their allies around the globe have been trying to push all of this technology down our throats and saying we have no choice but to move to it, Steve.
So, 2 years ago, Congress passed the Inflation Reduction Act, which is forcing us to spend, almost $400 billion subsidizing all this green stuff, which is failing. They're forcing EVs. EVs are a disaster for everybody, not just purchasers, but for the companies that make them. In November, Ford was losing $60,000 per EV sold. General Motors has tried to bail out of the EV market. I mean, it's just they're not working out for anybody. Our parking garages are not ready for them. They catch on fire in Norway, where they've had electric buses. Those have all failed in Oslo once again because of the temperature. I mean, this technology, I guess it can be kind of fun to play with, and on a perfect day, you can go 0 to 60 and nothing flat. But for most of us, the way we live our lives, they just don't work. Yet Biden is jamming it down our throats.
Right. Yeah. Every so often I like a golf cart on a sunny day, but I prefer my heated vehicle when it's freezing outside.
Yeah. And the technology is not going to get any better anytime soon. And the thing that, really sort of gets me is that every EV makes us more dependent on communist China. You cannot build an EV battery without communist China, because that's where all the processed graphite, which is a lot of the weight of the EV battery, it all comes from China. And so consumers are paying more for these cars, which are really inferior to internal combustion engine powered cars. They're making us more dependent on China. It's not improving your life. It's not improving the environment. It's not, changing the weather or affecting global warming or climate change in any way. It's just, it's a ridiculous thing to buy for any reason other than going, 0 to 60 in 2 seconds or whatever.
Yeah, yeah. All right. Well, I want to get to kind of the globalists and their role in all of this in just a moment. But first, I know that you are a signatory on a letter this week to the Speaker of the House, Mike Johnson, about essentially stopping the demented green agenda before it hurts too many people. Tell us what that's about.
Yeah, so a group of my fellow climate skeptics at the Heartland Institute, Energy Environment Legal Institute, American Energy Institute, Committee for Construction Tomorrow. We sent the Speaker of the House a letter, sort of summarizing 2023 and where the green agenda is, and of course, we sent along our new report called "Wrong Again," the 2023 edition, where we, exposed the hottest lying ever and all the climate lies from last year. But most importantly, we point out how the entire green agenda is really failing. Net zero, electric vehicles, offshore wind, ESG investing, all these things have gone south since the Greens have offered them up. None of this is working out. Net zero is not possible. Offshore wind, is killing whales, makes pointlessly expensive electricity. And a lot of the projects now are just failing because of all the inflation and supply chain problems. ESG is really taking a hit now. BlackRock, which is the leader in ESG investing, has basically cleaned out his entire ESG department. It's been such a fail. So, we just want to remind the Speaker that this whole agenda is falling apart. As you know, Vince, Republicans can go awfully wobbly on green issues because it's not something they really pay attention to, really understand. Would just rather stay away from them. But in this year, especially as an election year, it's very important for Republicans to know what's going on.
Yeah.
You can get the letter at junkscience.com. We've got everything with links. It's a pretty good resource.
Well, you're right about Republicans. A lot of that is they've either ceded territory or they've sucked up to their donors and they decided to be squishy on these issues. But do you get the sense that Speaker Johnson is taking you seriously, that human flourishing is on the line, human life is on the line here?
Well, it's kind of hard to tell just between, you mean the listeners. These issues haven't really come up yet this year. I mean, he's got, he's swamped with these spending bills. We think that he ought to be going after the money in the Inflation Reduction Act. That $400 billion, a lot of it has not been spent. Most of it has not been spent. That needs to be clawed back. I don't know that it's going to happen this year. Maybe if Republicans have a strong showing in November, get the White House, Senate, House, we can start clawing some of that back.
All right, let's talk about the globalists now. And meanwhile, in Davos, Switzerland this week, they're all assembling to once again talk about how they can rob each of us of our liberty and power and ability to even move, our freedom of movement, in order to empower them. What are you detecting out of this meeting this year?
Well, it's nothing really new. I mean, it's just the annual globalist climate clown show. Everyone, they fly in their private jets, demonstrating their climate hypocrisy. They go there, they say the same thing every year. I guess what's news this year is John Kerry is leaving the Biden administration so that he can campaign for Biden on climate, which, come on. Who would have John Kerry campaign for them? And then Al Gore, he's abandoned making predictions that, we can actually test because all of his have failed. Now he's saying, well, if we get to net zero, it'll just take a couple of years for temperatures to stop rising. Of course, none of this will never happen, right? It's impossible to get to net zero. Billions of us would die if we got to net zero, stopped rising. So I haven't really seen anything too interesting yet. It's just really the standard hypocrisy of private jets and hot air from folks like Al Gore and John Kerry. But I mean,
well, it gives away the game, doesn't it? I mean, if you were sincere about this, if you actually believed it, you would do this over Zoom. You wouldn't actually, go and meet in Switzerland, private jets included.
Well, right. I mean, if they were really serious about it, they would have done a lot of different things decades ago. And, Al Gore wouldn't be buying oceanside property in California. Barack Obama wouldn't be buying, oceanfront property in Martha's Vineyard. A lot of people would do different things. If sea level was really rising, real estate in Miami wouldn't be skyrocketed. So, I mean, there's a lot of, bullshit, going on.
Yeah, for sure. No question. Hey, I'm going to play some audio of John Kerry. Just to remember, John Kerry, as Steve Milloy just pointed out, just left the Biden administration to spend more time with his private jet. And here's what he said. He was tracked down by a reporter at the World Economic Forum this week.
What's the carbon footprint of these events every single year that you come here? You think it's worth it?
Next, I'll add some color here. John Kerry is trying to walk away from this guy, and he's got a lady handler who keeps on shoving the reporter away.
Pay for your crimes?
That's a stupid question.
Is it really? Is it more stupid than you traveling here to tell us? Please, sorry?
We're done. We are done now.
And they keep shoving him away. More from this reporter from Rebel News.
Why do you think you're more important? Your carbon footprint doesn't matter, but everybody else around the world
Suggested that. Nobody ever suggested that. Don't make up stupid questions.
Well, he didn't actually make that up, did he, Steve Milloy? Because at one point, John Kerry did actually say that his travel was more important than the rest of ours.
That's absolutely right, Vince. John Kerry did, in fact, say that he was more important than the rest of us, and he needed to travel to save the planet. So, but what do you look when you corner these guys? They always lie. It's all John Kerry knows how to do. Same with Al Gore, Joe Biden.
Yeah, that's they default to that as their tactic, and yet they're there doing that. I do think that this meeting, as goofy as they are, as cartoonish as all of these people are, it is meaningful insofar as like they do have genuine power in their respective countries and are advancing a deeply evil anti-human agenda, Steve Milloy.
Oh, absolutely. Well, these are the elites. Lots of CEOs, heads of universities, governments. They love to go. They got Zelensky. Usually they get Biden. Lots of the elites and Bill Gates. And they do have ideas for what they want to do in the future. And none of it is very democratic, has anything to do with freedom, or is good for the rest of us. It's the problem when you have, it's groupthink, right? They all get in the same room or the same ski slope and engage in groupthink. Mm-hmm. And all they can think about is how to manage us. And of course, that's going to be a failure. And it's going to be a failure. If you've ever read Hayek's Road to Serfdom, that's what groupthink produces.
Yeah, it certainly does. Lastly, I want to ask you about a series of New York Times headlines. Perhaps you've seen them just in the last 2 weeks. On January 2nd, the New York Times was predicting what they referred to as, in the headline, the end of snow. On January 10th, they wrote, climate change is driving a sharp drop in snow levels, study finds. And then on January 12th, they wrote, how can a warming climate increase snowfall? So, what's that about? Why is the New York Times telling us snow is disappearing and increasing?
Well, so this is the thing. None of their predictions ever turn out. And when their predictions turn out wrong, then they say the exact opposite. So it was always, global warming is going to disappear snow. Well, of course, that's never happened. But, they keep coming out with these headlines. New York Times in 2014 had they had an op-ed. It was called the End of Snow ? And then earlier this year, as you pointed out, it was the end of snow, period. And then, of course, it had been snowing all fall. Before the World Cup ski races, which now start in October instead of January, they were actually snowed out. There's too much snow. But the New York Times doesn't care. I mean, their readers get into this climate bubble, and they'll just believe anything that the Times writes, I guess. But I mean, it's so easy to knock down. I do it every day, Vince.
Yeah, no, it's so funny though. It's like they don't care. They're putting like every possible headline up and hoping something sticks. It's like if you are a climate panic person, there's a choose your own adventure headline available at the New York Times for you. At any rate, Steve Milloy, thank you as always with the Energy and Environment Legal Institute. Really appreciate your time today, sir.
It's the only choice for somebody like me who is traveling the world to win this battle. I believe the time it takes me to get somewhere, I can't sail across the ocean. I have to fly to meet with people and get things done.
Yeah, that's John Kerry. Sorry, I got to fly private. For people like me, I'm trying to get things done here. I've got a planet to save, and I can only do it if I have unlimited leg room and foie gras. He's just such a ridiculous, frozen-faced elite person. Let's go to Kip in Fredericksburg, line 2. Kip, good afternoon. You are on the Vince Colonnade Show. Hello, sir.
Hi, Vince. This is Kip.
Oh, excuse me. Hello, ma'am. Nice to talk to you.
Yeah.
Thank you.
He didn't tell you I was female, did he?
We don't usually list gender on the board. It's not we're not the left or anything. Go ahead.
Okay, good deal. Listen, I have a big problem with these unelected federalists who think that they can tell me or any other American what kind of car we have to buy, drive, own, or anything.
Yes.
You know, and that's, as far as I'm concerned, that's a good reason to do it for Trump, so we can get rid of this nonsense. And if we don't, we're going to wind up somebody else doing a Fauci on us.
Yeah, that's exactly right. You're going to end up as the subjects of some faceless global cabal. And instead, you know, right now you're supposed to be on the king of the mountain. You're an American citizen. You live in a free country. It's supposed to have sovereign borders, and it's supposed to respect the will of the people. I mean, we have what makes us different is what makes us great. I mean, we've got a Second Amendment for a reason. We've got the right to defend ourselves. We've got, wonderful families, wonderful neighborhoods, and they're worth defending. And instead, you have John Kerry trying to figure out ways that he can sell off the farm.
Well, let's face it. John Kerry back in Vietnam told so many lies that, why should we even believe him now? I mean, good grief.
Yeah, well, he's fighting a new war now against the weather, and he's drafting us into it. I'm not interested, Kip. I don't know. It sounds like you're not either. Thank you for the call. Really appreciate it. Please call back. Hold tight. I've got coming up Ken Paxton, the Attorney General of the Lone Star State, is going to give us some exclusive details on how he and his state are fighting back. I can't believe this is happening now against the federal government in an effort to keep our borders secure while Biden tries to open it up. That's ahead. Good afternoon. It's 5:35 now. News Talk 105.9 WMAL, where we are making sense of the news. You can join us today at 888-630-9625, 888-630-WMAL. Real quick, we've been talking about Iowa. There's a breaking news alert coming through. U.S. Senator Chuck Grassley has been hospitalized. He's receiving antibiotic infusions, according to Fox News, his office saying. His office also saying he's in good spirits and will return to work as soon as possible following doctor's orders. So quick breaking news item on Chuck Grassley, an elderly senator in the Republican Party. And Godspeed. I hope he gets better really quickly. All right. We also have some information for you. Texas is squaring off against the Biden administration. There's a lot of chaos over just 2.5 miles of border. Texas has decided, you know what, we're going to do what we can to secure it. The Biden administration opposes that. Here's Karine Jean-Pierre today saying that it's Texas who are the bad guys.
And there's been multiple actions that this governor has taken, right? Blocking Border Patrol from accessing the border, that's a problem. When he's blocking them and putting Texas officials, then he's taking away the duties of what the Border Patrol are supposed to do. And so it is a problem.
It is a problem, she says. Is it, though? Let's bring in the Attorney General of the Lone Star State. Ken Paxton joins us now. Sir, good to have you back with us here on the program. Thank you.
Hey, thank you.
Okay, so you are squaring off right now with the Biden administration over this 2.5 miles of border. Give us the state of play right now.
So this is public lands. We have every right to control those. They're not private. They're not owned by the federal government. The Border Patrol has over 1,200 miles that they have to patrol. They're not doing it. They've been told not to do it. So when she talks about us stopping them from doing their duties, the only people stopping Border Patrol from doing their duties are the Biden administration, who have told them to cooperate and participate and partner with the cartels to get people through the border as quickly as possible. So that's not us. That's actually the Biden administration talking out of both sides of its mouth.
And so this is an area in Eagle Pass called Shelby Park. You have the Texas National Guard is there, and they're blocking illegals from coming into our country. I saw video footage today of them holding up riot shields to stop people from getting across the border. Are they having success in slowing down illegal migration there?
Yes, according to all reports, this actually works. When you actually put up fences, wire, and walls, those actually work. And the Biden administration has done just the opposite, as you know. They've stopped all building of any walls. We've had to sue them over cutting down our fences and our our wire. And they do it. Why would they do that? Why would they cut them down? Because they know that it actually works. And the last thing the Biden administration wants is an immigration policy that follows federal law and that actually is effective.
The Department of Homeland Security's general counsel is a man called Jonathan Meyer, and wrote a letter to you earlier this week alleging that your state's actions are, quote, clearly unconstitutional and are actively disrupting the federal government's operations. I just want to start on that point of the constitutionality of what Texas is doing. Could you explain that to us?
Well, I'd love for him to cite a provision that we're violating. We have every right to protect our property, our public property, and they cite some statute about them having the right to go on private lands. This is not private lands. They're not authorized on these lands. We don't let them. These are our lands. These are our Texas sovereign lands, and the federal government doesn't have any control over those. So that's just, it's just wrong. He's just wrong, and he's making it up, and they're good at doing that. They've been doing it since they got into office.
There's a provision of the Constitution that says the federal government is supposed to repel invasions of the United States. Do you feel that your state is being invaded, and does that afford you extra constitutional protection here?
Yeah, we're definitely being invaded, and we have to do something because the consequences of the federal government allowing that invasion are really bad to the people of Texas, whether it's more crime, including, massive drug importation, or whether it's just the massive cost of trying to deal with millions of people coming through our state and staying in our state. So what are we supposed to do? Just say, well, the federal government, they're allowing an invasion. I guess we'll just let it all happen, and all the bad consequences are on us. They don't affect Joe Biden at all, but they do affect the people of our state.
The DHS General Counsel, Jonathan Meyer, is also saying in that letter he sent to you that if you don't, quote, cease and desist efforts to block Border Patrol's access in and around the Shelby Park area, that they will refer the matter to the Department of Justice, quote, for appropriate action and consider all other options available to restore Border Patrol's access to the border. What does that mean to you when they say he wants to refer you, I guess, for prosecution and all other actions? What could that possibly mean?
I have no idea what that means, but think about this. There are 1,266 miles of border along Texas and Mexico, and we're controlling right now this 2.5-mile stretch. And this is a big deal to them. They've got literally over 1,000 miles that they can work with the cartels to get as many people across as they want. And that's exactly what they do. So it's shocking to me that this is such a big deal to the Biden administration that we actually are preventing people from coming across a small section that makes up a minute percentage of the total border.
My understanding is that the rank and file membership of the Border Patrol is very supportive, actually, of what Texas is doing. Is that your impression as well?
Oh, every time I talk to Border Patrol, I've never spoken to a Border Patrol agent that was honest, that was openly speaking, that didn't agree with what we were doing. They don't like being forced to participate with the cartels. It's actually in violation of what they've signed up to do, in violation of federal law. So they know that, and they're being forced against their own desires to cooperate with the Biden administration that has no respect for federal law and their constitutional role to protect the nation.
Yeah, the best evidence of that, of course, is the visual evidence of the Biden administration actually breaking the barriers that Texas erects, to include the buoys that your state places in the Rio Grande, or to cut through the concertina wire to allow more illegals to pour into the country. Have you contemplated, or perhaps you've already done it, going after the Biden administration for the destruction of Texas's property?
Yes, we've actually sued them. Right now, we've got an injunction that says they can't do that. We got a Fifth Circuit injunction. So
right.
At this point, we've got them stopped, but they're obviously appealing that to the U.S. Supreme Court, trying to get that overturned. And obviously, we hope that the Supreme Court doesn't allow that, because it'll affect us in a very negative way.
Yeah, forgive me. Great reminder. I talked about that case in the past. So this is an ongoing fight. Where does it go from here? And is there any effort, do you think, to expand Texas's control of the border?
Yeah, I think the governor's trying to think of any way possible that he can act to protect the citizens of Texas. So, I commend him for doing it. It's the right thing to do. It's the only thing we can do, because we have no help. And it's not just we don't have help. We have a government, a federal government, the Biden administration, actively working with the cartels to cause all kinds of problems for our state and all kinds of problems for our country. And it's shocking to me. I've never seen a president that has acted this sort of against American interest and in the interest of the states in my lifetime.
Yeah, and they're actively sabotaging your state and all the rest of them because of in this way. I know Congress keeps debating getting control of the border right now, supposedly. They talk about immigration within Congress. My impression is that it's mostly to try and bring more people into the country. Do you have a message for Congress, which is, of course, within the sound of our voices right now?
Yes, my message is force the Biden administration to some type of funding mechanism to enforce federal law and protect our border. Don't give them money to continue to enable them to violate federal law and to violate the Constitution. Because right now, they're using our taxpayer dollars to violate the very laws that have been passed by the elected representatives of our country.
All right, the Attorney General of Texas, Ken Paxton, sir, I really appreciate your time today. You're in a big fight right now, and we're all rooting for you because it's good for our country to have a secure border. Thank you, sir, very much.
Hey, thank you. Have a great day. Of
course, you too. Again, Texas Attorney General Ken Paxton. It is amazing, though, that we're here. I want to emphasize something, too, that there are a number of lies that have been told about what's going on our border. That this idea that migrants had drowned, that they were being, that because of Texas's control of the border, there was an active drowning going on, and that Border Patrol wasn't able to get to these human beings to save their lives. Now, that, it turns out, is a complete lie. This idea that Texas was blocking people from being saved. In fact, Bill Melugin over at Fox News, tweeting just in the last few hours here, let me say, 10:23 this morning, said the narrative that Texas caused the drowning deaths of the migrants in Eagle Pass was false, per a Justice Department filing. That's the Biden Justice Department. They were already deceased by the time that Border Patrol asked for access. There have been hundreds of drownings in Eagle Pass that get no coverage, but when Texas can be blamed, frenzy. That was Bill Melugin, and he's right about that. There's been an immense amount of death on the border itself, whether it's on land or on the water. And the Biden administration has done a lot to mitigate any coverage of that. And, of course, you've got a willing press who doesn't really want to talk about it. A lot of death going on. So Bill Melugin points out, that never gets covered. And now 3 drownings get covered when they can be used to try and blame Texas, which is not at fault. There's a tweet here from a guy called Aaron Reichlin Melnick. He's a policy director for an organization called American Immigration Council. It says, new details at SCOTUS about the awful drowning on Friday. DOJ says the woman and the 2 children had already drowned when Border Patrol had asked Texas for access. They were there because Mexico said 2 other migrants were still in the river needing help. Texas refused access anyway, is their claim. But in other words, the drownings happened well before the Biden administration even asked for access to the area. So it was a lie. And it was a lie that generated a huge number of headlines. If you've seen anything over the past few days, then you've probably seen these headlines claiming that Texas was blocking the Border Patrol from saving migrants from drowning. Rolling Stone, Texas physically barred Border Patrol from attempting to save migrants who drowned. Mother Jones, 3 migrants drowned after Texas's attempt to seize control of the border. The Guardian had a particularly heinous version of this headline. It's supposed to be a mainstream news outlet. Of course, it's a left-wing outlet based out of the UK. Texas officials block U.S. border agents from helping 3 drowning, that's present progressive for you, tense, from helping 3 drowning migrants. Well, that's false. That's just false. And so instead, what Texas has actually done is creating safer conditions for everybody involved, from foreign nationals who are being turned back from making the dangerous journey into that area of Eagle Pass, to American citizens who deserve, at the very least, 2.5 miles of protection. That's what Texas is producing right now. With enthusiastic support from rank-and-file members of the Border Patrol who signed up with the belief that their job was to actually secure the border and not to be the welcome wagon for illegals pouring into the country. So there you have it. Texas continues to fight it out. Ken Paxton just joined us on that. If you missed any portion of that, you can hear it on the podcast. We've got that. And if you're not subscribed to the podcast, please do that. It helps us out tremendously. And it helps you insofar as you get to hear the show, which I think should be a benefit. I hope so anyway. Now, I know what you're thinking. How's The View processing Donald Trump's victory in Iowa yesterday? I'm glad you asked. Here's Joy Behar going crazy.
This is what the 5% voted for. They voted for a guy who today had to come to New York to show up in court in a case against a woman that a federal judge has already said he raped.
Now, you know, it's interesting. It's the E. Jean Carroll case he's referring to. It's paid for by major Democrat donors, specifically Reid Hoffman has been financing this whole thing, designed to take Trump down because he said that he'll do anything. He'll spend as much money as is necessary to hurt Trump and take him down. But this E. Jean Carroll case, the jury actually concluded in her first defamation trial with Trump that they did not find Trump liable for rape. The judge was dissatisfied with that finding and has since said, oh, it was rape. Well, that's not what the jury said. The jury literally said the opposite. They didn't find him liable for that. But no matter. It gives Joy Behar a talking point.
That is who you voted for.
Yeah.
You voted for someone who has lost so many times now that this applies to him. Let's see what else. You voted for a guy who said, come, risk your lives for the Grand Wizard.
That was one of the funniest things ever. He never said Grand Wizard. What an idiot she is. That's a Democrat thing. That's a Robert Byrd thing. I think Exalted Cyclops, to be more specific, was his role in the KKK. Joe Biden gave his eulogy at his funeral. This is idiotic. Trump did say something like, you should risk your lives to vote for me earlier this week. It was a laugh riot, but Joy Behar is not joyful.
Come in the snow and the sleet because I am more important than your life. That's who the 5% voted for.
Oh, man. 5%. That's about as much of her brain as she uses on any given show. That's crazy. Here's Sarah Haynes today. She's an Iowan, so she wants to give a perspective as an Iowan.
Honestly, it's disappointing as a non-Trump supporter to see that.
Iowan.
And an Iowan. Well, let me offer some color to this, though, to clarify this. It's disappointing to see that come out of Iowa, but let me add a little perspective and context.
Oh, please
that's
do.
very important.
Contextualize it.
Only 5% of the population of the state caucuses. So when you see Iowa swept, or Trump swept Iowa. No, he did not. He swept 5% of the population. Only 13% of registered Republicans in the state of Iowa, 13% of the party showed up for that. And only
it's about an average turnout in a sub-zero Arctic blast.
3 times in the past 8 Republican caucuses have they even predicted the candidate. So although I am a proud Iowa...
The Washington Post reports Trump more than doubled his support in Iowa since 2016.
And we love our caucus time because it makes you feel seen in a country where Iowa, we admittedly we lead simple lives. Like, nobody's checking on us. We're fine. We love the caucuses. We didn't earn it. We just get it historically. It's important to know those numbers when you're reading headlines because the headlines don't give you context.
I love how she's ragging on her own state. She's just saying that it's meaningless. It doesn't mean anything. When you hear about these Iowa caucuses, they're stupid anyway. We didn't even earn it. We shouldn't even have it. I mean, she's Iowan? She's standing up for her state? No, she's in a New York television studio talking crap about a state who just decided that Donald Trump is the guy they'd like to be the nominee to become president of the United States. I guess. News is just in. Iowa has deported Sarah Haynes. They are getting rid of her. They're offering her. They are taking 4 8th-round picks for Sarah Haynes. It's like so stupid. Well, that's The View. That's what it sounds like, and it always brings me joy. If Joy Behar can't find any joy in her life, she can bring some joy to mine, which she does. Hey, the great one, Mark Levin, is up next here on WMAL. As always, sign up to the podcast, please. The Vince Coglianese Show, available on those podcast platforms. Just start searching my name and then hit C. Chances are it'll autofill the rest. I'm wishing you luck with that last name. Always grateful to have you with us. We'll be back with you tomorrow. The great one, Mark Levin, up next.